Hey guys, this is the Fight Nerd, and joining me now is the Bellator CEO Bjorn Rebney. Bjorn, how are you today?
I'm really good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Now we're here today in New York at Mushin Mixed Martial Arts, downtown Manhattan. You guys are doing a little press workout today. Got a lot of fighters here. It's going to be a big season coming up for you guys. So let's talk about first things first. New TV deal you guys have, MTV and on Saturdays.
Yeah, magic. I mean, as exciting as it can be. MTV2 Saturday nights 9 to 11, 80 million homes, highest concentration of young males on all of television. Part of the MTV Network's platform. I mean, just as good as it gets. 25 events in 2011, 27 in 2012, and more in 2013. So we're just thrilled. That's what we've been working toward for the last couple of years, is to get to this type of a deal with this type of a group. So magic.
It's going to be a huge season now. The first thing I think of, though, when I hear the guys are on Saturday is that you pretty much are not going to be dealing head-to-head with Spike TV and all their UFC programming. You're basically going to be being counter-programmed every week by Spike, more or less. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and you got to take a little bit of a step back in terms of the ownership structure and the entertainment conglomerate that is Viacom. And that's what makes this deal so cool, is that MTV Networks, which is owned and controlled by Viacom, also controls MTV, MTV2, VH1, Comedy Central, Spike. So ultimately, it gives us a flexibility where when there is a UFC event on Spike, we can pump our program up a couple of hours so that ultimately we're not competing head-to-head. And as an MMA fan, I can sit home on a Saturday and I can turn it into an MMA night. I can watch 4 hours of spectacular MMA going from MTV2 with Bellator Fighting Championships, ultimately to Spike Network, and watch the UFC. So it allows us great flexibility where we won't have that competitive counter-programming because we're under that same corporate umbrella. So it makes for really cool continuity. And it allows guys like me and guys like you and fans of the sport to be able to watch killer MMA back-to-back on a Saturday night.
So essentially it's going to be a rotating time slot then if anything happens.
Well, there's only, I think in season 4, there's only 2 conflicting time periods, which is odd, but it just happens to be the case. So, there's a couple of times where we'll be bumped up. I think we'll start at 7 instead of 9, but for the most part it'll always be 9 to 11.
Now, you guys have mentioned that you're going to be coming to Connecticut very soon. That's all well and exciting. I'm a New York guy. Connecticut's all right, but for most of us, we have to go all the way up to New Jersey. And the rumor on the street now is you guys are coming to Jersey, Nico Vitale versus Hector Lombard, middleweight title defense.
Yep.
So what's up in New Jersey? Let's hear a little more about that.
Well, we're big fans of New Jersey at this point. And, we've been looking to try to find the right platform and the right alliance to bring Bellator to the East Coast more frequently. We've done a lot of events at Mohegan, which have been real successful, and then we've been trying to figure out, okay, you've got Mohegan in Connecticut, which is an hour and a half in one direction, go a couple hours in the other direction to AC, and that's what we'll be doing. We'll be kicking it off this season with a great event with Hector Lombard in Atlantic City.
Can you tell us what arena that's going to be?
I can tell you probably in about a week.
It's not today, though.
It's not today. I wish it was. I'm excited about it, and it's a done deal, but we haven't. I'm always super careful about kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's in totality before I announce it. I know where it's going to be, and it's going to be great, and it'll be be a great show, and they're stepping up in a great way, which is very cool to see. But pretty quick, hopefully next week.
All right. Well, in the ideal situation, then, what's going to be the ideal capacity that you guys hold at this event in New Jersey?
A few thousand seats. I mean, it'll be kind of classic Bellator in the vein of what we've done at Hard Rock down in Fort Lauderdale, in terms of the lower bowl, and what we've done in Mohegan, in terms of what we've done at Le Bourge du Lac in Louisiana and stuff like that. 1,000 seats, everybody with a spectacular sightline right on top of the action.
All right, so you guys are going to Atlantic City, but the one place I thought you would be going to maybe would be the IZOD Center, since IFL ran a lot of events there. How come you guys going to AC and not IZOD, which is a little bit closer to the city?
It's all a matter of kind of where the dynamics come from, and who steps up, and how they step up, and what kind of a commitment they have in terms of not just one event, but conceivably doing 2, 3, and 4 down the line. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for the kind of alliances we've had with Hard Rock down in Hollywood, Florida, Mohegan up in Connecticut, in Kansas City, multitude of different venues. But we want to go places repetitively, and that's what this dynamic allows for us.
Are there any new places also on the horizon this year?
Oh, man. Our kickoff at Tachi in Fresno, California. We got 4 events in Oklahoma this year, which is an anomaly. We haven't done an event in Oklahoma since the first season. We're going back to Le Bourge. We're going back to Hard Rock. We're going back to Mohegan. We're all over the place. Again, it's kind of the rolling circus from week to week to week.
Now, what would you say would be the defining fight of Bellator Season 3 for you?
I don't think there's really any question. It's the Warren Soto fight. that was from a comeback perspective, from a kind of a Rocky movie-esque perspective, and the build out of Joe Warren as a personality in this game. I mean, I knew he was wickedly talented. I mean, the Chase Beebe fight, and the Kid Yamamoto fight, and all the different fights that he got to get up to that level. The comeback against Patricio Pitbull, where he was literally unconscious on the mat at the end of the first round, and then came back and won the fight. I mean, you couldn't really script it better if you were trying to write it. You know, if you and I sat down and pulled out the laptop and we're trying to script a movie story with that personality and the kind of bleed red, white, and blue, American Olympic dream, that kind of a thing, and he has those kind of comebacks. I mean, I watched that first round of that Soto fight, and that's like maybe one of the only 10-8 rounds I've ever seen where a guy never leaves his feet. I mean, Warren was getting destroyed, and then you see him at the end of the round, and this is probably one of all the shots that I've seen at Bellator. There's one moment on camera with Joe Warren that I look at as a fan. Every time I think about it and I get goosebumps. He ends the first round and he does one of these with his head, like, well, enough of that. And you can see it crystal clear on camera. I don't know why one of our camera people was covering him, but he just gives this kind of nod like, well, that's going to stop. And then he comes out in the next round. And I mean, that knockout was just, you know. And the other thing about it is Soto, at the time, Soto's, what, 6th in the world? I mean, you're not talking about a knockout against some guy that was brought in as cannon fodder to build a record. You're talking about a top 10 ranked featherweight in the world. I thought it was an incredible moment. I mean, Eddie's fight against Roger Huerta was unbelievable in terms of an incredibly dominant one-sided performance against a very high-level lightweight who was training knowing that the fight meant everything in the world to him. So, you know, I mean, there were a lot of great moments, but the Warren moment sticks out in my head.
I want to ask you also about Strikeforce, who they just started doing their heavyweight Grand Prix. You guys have been doing tournaments since you started, day one. Now Strikeforce is doing this. Do you have any thoughts about Strikeforce doing the tournament, and any news on the potential war that you guys have had? So I know Scott Coker said it's only been you, more or less, pushing this fight. Is there any chance that we still might get Strikeforce versus Bellator at some point down the line?
Boy, I tried to make that run, and I made it probably more with the fans' hat on than with the CEO's hat on. I got very kind of energized about it and excited about it, and was very public in kind of my request for Scott to become engaged, because I couldn't get him engaged from a private perspective on the phone or via email or text or anything else. But, I don't think I got a very distinct impression based on the lack of responsiveness. It's not something that he wanted with regards to Gilbert versus Eddie. And I understand that reasoning from a matchup perspective, but I would doubt it. And I think their heavyweight tournament is and was compelling. I mean, Bigfoot's performance against Fedor was as dominant a performance as I've seen in the last probably 3 years against a guy who's surely in the top 4 or 5 in the world. I mean, it was just a magic, unbelievable performance, and it'll be interesting to see what happens next in it. I think that the part of what makes our tournament so cool is that there's a consistency to them, and there aren't those lapses. I don't know what's happening next with the tournament. I read an article a couple days ago that it may or may not happen in the next month, or where it's going to be, but it is a compelling tournament. There's no question about it. When you get the guys on board that he's got on board in the heavyweight tournament, it's a great tournament. I mean, Josh, Fedor, the list goes on and on. So.
Well, looking back now, is this something you regret doing as far as pushing this issue with Scott Coker, or you still think it was good stuff for you guys?
I've said a lot of times, I wear a CEO's hat and I wear a fan's hat. I've been watching this game for a long time. I think Eddie versus Gilbert's a spectacular fight. I think Eddie Alvarez is the best 155-pounder on the face of the earth. There was a time not long ago where there was BJ and everybody else. And then Frankie won a close fight and dismantled in a second fight. And Eddie was training with Frankie. I know what the results of those training sessions were. I know what Eddie Alvarez has got. So I think he's the best lightweight on earth. And as a fan, I think Gilbert's one of the top lightweights in the world as well. I would love to see that fight. And I'm not unrealistic. I realize that there's not going to be a Frankie Edgar-Eddie Alvarez fight. But a Gilbert fight, from a fan's perspective, is one that we should. I think it would be good to have it made. They're both in the prime of their career. They're fighting as well as they've ever fought. Why not? I mean, why wouldn't you do that fight? What is there isn't. I don't know. I think that it would be a great fight. I would love to see that fight happen. but I wouldn't hold my breath.
All right, so last thing I want to ask you, Bjorn,
Yes?
the entire tournament here, no one has an easy way in. It's just the whole field is rough. So what's going to be a tournament you're looking most forward to this year?
Oh, boy. 70 has got a ton of meat on the bone. I mean, when you got Jay Haran and Lyman Good, and, I mean, the lineup of 70 is super strong, super strong. 45 is strong, very, very strong. I mean, of late we've signed, Marlon Sandro and Ronnie Mann, and neither one of them are either going to be in this tournament to start. So when you've got Marlon, who's one of the top 5 guys in the world, and you've got Ronnie, who probably has an argument to be considered for the top 10, and they're not even going to be in, it speaks to the depth of 45. 55, does Mike Chandler prove everybody right in terms of prognosticators and become a real superstar in this game? Does Razor Rob kind of recoup and become the Razor Rob of old? I'm excited about all of them. I'm excited to see an unknown step out of the 205 division and win the world title. So 70 kind of, as a fan, it lights my fire. I mean, that there's not a bad fight in any one of those opening four fights at 70. So that's gonna be a lot of fun to watch in the 5th.
Absolutely. Now, by the way, for you guys at home, that sound of leather hitting leather is Lyman Good punching some mitts right behind us. That's our cue to get out of here because we're going to get trampled if we don't. So, Bjorn, thanks for your time very much, and we'll see you coming up in, I guess, Connecticut very soon, and then Jersey, and then hopefully again at both those places.
Very cool. I look forward to it.
Thank you very much, Bjorn.
All right, man. Thanks.